Let's meet our panelists. I'll start with Kristian Gravenor. He's the editor over at Coolopolis and a Montreal journalist. We have Sylvie Lacerte from the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts, the public art council for that museum. Doing good work. Thank you for joining us. We also have Alessandra Salituri, who joined us a few minutes ago. You may remember her from around 7:50 in this show. And she is the founder of Citizen Atelier and an art dealer. And Carlo De Luca from Station 16 Gallery and Print Shop. You are the gallery owner over there. So we've got a good panel to debate this issue. And it's something that gets a lot of people talking. You know, earlier this week in LaSalle, they unveiled some new public art. A lot of people saying, you know, a lot of money, costs around $680,000. So I'll throw this out to you, panel. Spending public money on art installations, is it valuable to society or not?
It's essential.
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 Why is it essential?
Absolutely. Well, because art is part of life, and art is what makes us think. It may not be always a nice, how can I say, picture that is sent back to us by the artists, but they're there to reflect on life, just as writers, musicians, actors, cinematographers.
Absolutely. Like, it's fundamental for the success of a city and to be a global city and a creative city that funds are put into the public arts. I think more funds should be put into the public arts.
More funds. Alessandra, what do you think?
I think, honestly, art creates also a sense of attachment to people in the community. So it reflects community values. I think in Montreal specifically, it really tells the history of who we are as a people, where we've been and where we're going. So I think it has a lot to do with how people feel when they're walking through their own city.
Kristian?
Well, I hate to disagree with all three of you, but I mean, it's quite obvious that the people, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but if you go on any social media, there's 1,000 comments as get the potholes fixed first.
Yeah.
And it's like, we are a democracy, you know, this is their money, so why don't we, you know, maybe we should be listening to their voice.
But a lot of money does get spent on the hospitals. A lot of money gets spent on the potholes and our roads. It's one of our two biggest expenditures, probably. So isn't there a sort of balance that needs to be had when it comes to spending public money on these kinds of projects? And Kristian, I know you may have that other view, but shouldn't there be some money spent on it?
Well, there should be some sort of consultation. These things seem to be springing up and nobody knew anything about them, so people feel a bit shocked at them. Now, personally, I feel some of them are really amazing and I like them a lot, and I don't necessarily follow that viewpoint. But, you know, there has to be more of a connection between the politicians, the decisions being made, the artists being chosen, the messages being sent, and what the final product.
Sylvie, let's be honest with me, because you're public art council at the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. Is there a time when you see something that's been installed, a public installation art, and you go, what were they thinking? Or do you say, you know what, art's art, it's subjective?
Well, yeah, it's possible that you may not agree with everything that's done, but on the whole, I think that the projects that are being realized are usually really good, because the Percent for Art program from the Ministry of Culture has juries that choose the artists and the artworks, and it's done in a very democratic way. And I think that the reason why some people don't appreciate public art as much is because they haven't been acquainted with the art early enough in life, and that's the main problem. You know, education is what really counts.
Well, let's go to this side here. Do you find there's enough consultation on your end? You have, you know, you play a role in Montreal's artistic world. Do you find the city's coming to you, the provinces coming to you and asking you, hey, what's your opinion before we move forward on projects?
I think all communities actually should get together and have a panel and discussion, and a public art piece should actually be in every single community to identify the diversity of that community. I think the strength of Montreal, and to promote our city as the creative capital city of North America, we should have a lot of these landmarks in every borough. I think that is our future. It's the global future of cities is creative cities.
Alessandra, would you advocate for more?
I honestly think there just needs to be, as everyone's saying, more consultation with the community. You know, you think about Montreal North, and they're spending $1.1 million in this community, and I think my impression was a lot of people from that community were kind of shocked and weren't even aware of the project. And if art in fact does reflect our community, I think it's important that more people are involved.
Here's a thought, and one of the knocks against what we're seeing here on your screen in Montreal North is that it looks like a Ferris wheel. you can't go on it. There's no utility. In cases of public art, should we also ensure that there's a bit of utility to it? It's got a sort of a dual purpose. It's artistic, but people can use it as opposed to just looking at something as they walk down the street?
I totally think so. For example, one of the beautiful things that we see in other cities we don't see here are these roundabouts which solve intersection problems, but they also give a beautiful round square at every corner. And it's like that would, something like that, which we never even consider, would solve a lot of problems. So I think we got to go back to the round table, but we got to understand as well, these public meetings tend to get, attended by the same lunatics with their little agendas all the time. So it's really hard to get a real a consensus. It's easy to say go to the community, but there is no real community. It's a lot of people coming from different directions.
That's a really good point, right? People at home, they're raising their family, they're going to work, they're just trying to get through the day. They don't have the time. How do we reach those people?
As I said earlier, it starts early in school, and also.
So do we have these programs in place? Do we have enough programs with our school boards?
We don't. There are a lot of there are a lot of kids that come to the Museum of Fine Arts, of course, but it's always left to the discretion of the schools. It's not a program put forward by the Ministry of Culture or anything like that in any discipline.
Educating the public is really important, and the importance of having these public art sculptures, pieces in the city, they have to understand why they are there.
Yes.
What's the reason for them? They're there, and they're not just there to beautify the city. That is one component, but they're there for an economical value that will sustain and help us become that creative city.
Carlo, I got to leave it there for now. We're going to come back. When we come back, I've got to play the role of devil's advocate with a couple of tougher questions. Stay with us right here on Breakfast Television.
The scenery, the art, that's what Montreal is known for.
I find that our mayors are trying to turn our city into Europe when it's Canadian, it's Quebec, Canada. We're not Europe.
Really, I am very, very for. Culture is wonderful.
When wasting money on granite tree stumps, whatever, total waste of money.
Oh, a very contentious issue right there, the stumps. Nobody likes them, probably because they're called stumps and not anything else, because it's a terrible word. But you know what, let's go off what we just heard there. First off, your thoughts on the stumps.
I'll tell you right now what it is. It's basically yet another way that the city is controlling culture. It's sanitizing everything. Back in the 1950s, you had crazy subversive artists who would go out with chainsaws on trees and create sculptures, and this was very scary. In 1976, of course, Montreal had a big thing on Sherbrooke Street, the corridor, and it was just too threatening for the mayor. He took it down. So it's like, to me, this is my main worry. It's all very sanitized and government approved. I want to see the real art from the people.
And, well, can we, does it reflect people? We heard someone say that we want the art not to be, well, she said European, it's got to reflect more Canada. Does our art in the city reflect us?
I think our art does reflect us in the city. You know, we are a very fast-forward thinking, creative society. Going back to like your points, the Eiffel Tower, when that was erected, it wasn't very popular. You know, now it's the landmark of Paris. You know, I think we just have to give it a chance. You know, just let's let the creative juices flow out of our.
What was that quote at the time, that the best restaurant in Paris was the one at the Eiffel Tower because you didn't have to look at the Eiffel Tower?
Yes,
I mean, these are actual quotes,
yes.
right? So there's a love-hate relationships that when a lot of these things come out. I want to hear from the artistic side, the artistic community here. Just about those stumps, do any of you say, like, you know, I tried to get that, like, do you ever look at one of these things and go, oh boy, that's a bad decision?
Yeah, I think the issue also with the tree stumps is that a lot of people felt that too much money was spent. There wasn't enough competition. I think there was only 2 bidders on that project. And also the project ended up costing, I think, 30 or 40% more than it was supposed to. So I think a lot of people have issue with that, especially in a beautiful scenery like Montreal.
Okay, so my next question is this. There are so many people that I think are in favor of public art, but there are a lot of naysayers, doubters, taxpayers are like, this is a waste. But we see the value, a lot of us see the value. Why is there, it seems like there's a distrust. So what is at the core of the distrust when public officials, cities, and the province spends money on public art? Why do you think that is?
Well, it's because people in general, or the ones that are against public art, don't know about what artists are doing. And we have to remember that a piece of public art can become a point of reference in a city. And, oh yes, I'll meet you there under the Daniel Buren flags at Amherst and Sherbrooke. And at first, people didn't like them, but now, whenever the city takes them away to maintain them, the people are up in arms and call the city and say, hey, where are our flags?
And Sylvie,
so they really feel a
connection.
A connection, yeah.
Sylvie, you have a shining example of this at the Montreal Museum of Fine Art.
Of course.
The glass,
the Sun by Chihuly.
There you go, right?
And
We're
so,
looking at it right now.
all summer, people have been coming to the museum, and everybody is having their photograph taken in front of the sun, of Chihuly's sun, and also on Avenue du Musée, right next to the museum. There's a wonderful public art garden, sculpture garden, and everybody gets their picture taken on Joe Fafar's cow, and so it's fun, you know, it's ludique, as we say in French.
I promised a tough question, and I have to deliver this. If there's a single person waiting for cancer treatment, there's a single homeless person on the streets, if there is a single child that's hungry in this city, should we spend $1 of public money on art?
I think there has to be a balance for both. It's really important. In order for us to be able to give treatments or help these people, you need to have creative people that want to come into our city. How are you going to attract these creative people, these professionals, smart professionals? You want to bring them into a city that has culture, that has arts, that has lives. They won't come to our city if it's a gray city. So in order to attract these smart professionals to help develop these areas, you need the arts, and perhaps with all this art around us, we'll have a creative solution to filling our potholes. Let's bring in the right people.
I'm tired of hearing this question all the time. I mean, we're always comparing art to hospital beds. It has ça n'a pas de rapport, you know.
They're not connected.
Not
Well, I
whatsoever.
disagree. It is still
Can I
it's
finish? Can I
taxpayers'
finish?
dollars.
It's
Well,
taxpayer.
it's our money.
Can I finish?
The end of our we could get that paycheck, and that sucker has been zapped by the government, and people want to know why. That's our money being taken away. So it's like
These are different budgets. They have nothing to do with one another. The health ministry has the highest budget in the government.
and coming from our pockets. People want to have their money. That's what they work all week to get that money. That's absolutely their right.
Creative employees. How are you going to stimulate a creative employee? You are going to be driving around the city. You're going to have public arts. It will stimulate your senses. It's like turning on the radio, the music. You want to be stimulated. You go back to your employer. You're going to be able to develop product, create new product, export new creative products. That's how you become a creative city.
Panel, you were absolutely fantastic. I thank you so much for coming. I have a very short amount of time, so I'm going to go around the panel and ask you, other than Montreal, your favorite city for art. Carlo, start with you.
I think Barcelona is awesome.
I was going
Alessandra.
to say the same.
Oh, two Barcelonas. Good travel. Sylvie?
Well, I won't say Barcelona then, but I'll say London.
London. Beautiful.
My
and Christian.
favorite's got to be Montreal, but I tell you right now, Philadelphia the worst. I hate that rocky statue.
That's true. Good stuff, guys. Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.